Alright, hey everyone, welcome to my newest video, a comprehensive beginner's guide to Summoner's War Chronicles. So, I am Yasis. I am currently, count level 44 as of making this video, 276,000 power. I may not be the highest ranked player in the game, but I've gotten pretty far within the about month that the game has been out, and I think I have a pretty good grasp on how this works. So I'm gonna go ahead and begin here. So, when you first start the game, you're going to get a lot of summons, and you're going to get what's called a selective summon. This is an infinite reroll summon. Don't be deceived by the 30. You can actually reset it by doing a simple quest. I obviously can't show that here because I have a high level account, and getting on an alt would take a while. So you're going to get a selective summon. You can reroll it as many times as you want. We're going to talk about which units you should roll for in a moment, but just be aware that that is an infinite reroll. So, what monsters should you select to summon, and what monsters should you use throughout the game? So first of all, Konamiya, or the water Garuda, is going to carry you along with Shannon, or the Wind Pixie, which is currently not evolved. So I need to kind of scroll down here, which will take a second. But Wind Pixie, also known as Shannon, will carry you through most of the game. Shannon gives you attack and defense buffs and applies attack down and defense down. And Water Kona is a very strong healer that heals based off of its max HP, which is something that's big to remember, is it heals based off of its max HP, not anything else. I know the wording and the verbiage in the description can be a little confusing, so just remember, Kona heals based off of its own HP. So you're going to want to rune this into max HP as much as possible. It also removes static electric shock, which makes it very useful for Shortly, which is a later game boss, and it applies mana regen speed up to your summoner. So generally, very useful unit. However, if you get the light version of it, Tion, probably replace it with him because he's generally considered as a better unit. However, the Pixie and the Garuda will carry you through almost the entirety of the content. However, Act 4, there will be some content that will be very helpful to run Wind Mystic Witch, because you're going to run into a boss, like I said, named Shortly, and when you get him to low health, he starts regenning. So you're going to want to apply Unrecoverable, and then you just have to sort of attrition him to death. And then in Act 5, you're going to hit a very hard block, sort of, because you're going to run into a lot of very powerful fire monsters and bosses. If you have a good enough 5-star, you can kind of brute force it with certain monsters. I brute forced it personally, but if you want it to be very easy, just get the Water Amazon. Both of these monsters will be given to you with all the resources to max them, as long as you do the area quests. So when you go to your quest log, you're going to have these area exploration quests. Each area has them, so when you get to Act 4 and 5, which is Florence and Rukerengma, you're going to get a bunch of these unlocked. And as long as you complete them, you will receive both the Wind Mystic Witch and the Water Amazon, and all the resources to fully awaken them to level 5 and fully level them. So don't stress about leveling them up early or anything if you receive them. Just grab them and level them up to the levels that they provide you the materials for. They're very useful units, and they will carry you through Act 4 and 5 if you don't have the monsters that will carry you through it. So, moving on from those basic monsters, I think there's one more monster I actually want to mention that I would recommend leveling up, and that's going to be Chloe, which is the Fire Epicyon Priest. She allows you to cheese a lot of content because she provides you invincibility and removes all harmful effects on invincible allies, and also helps recover HP and gives invincibility to an enemy, to a unit, if it has low enough HP. So, very good unit. Allows you to cheese through a lot of content even without leveling her up. I don't have her optimized, you can see here, and she's still very useful. So, Selective Summon. Alright, so this is my second edit to this video. You guys will see another one later. Anyways, point is, Selective Summon, you guys are going to hear me talk a lot about it, but I'm going to cut out the main part where I talk about it. Ignore anything I say past this about any kind of selective summons. If there's anything left in the video, only choose Fire or Water Desert Queen. I recorded that video like 3 days ago now, and my opinions have changed a lot in between editing and uploading and all that stuff. So I'm just going to put this in the video and just ignore anything else I say. Cool. Thank you. Have a great time. Enjoy the rest of the video. Bye. Do not pick any monster that's in the selective summon banner. I would 100% recommend against that because you are guaranteed to get that monster already. And coming up there, if this isn't months after this video, there is an event that will give you duplicates you need to avoid to upgrade your monsters. I would also recommend against using gems for summons in most times because it will be far more important to have gems in the later game so you can buy more entries into the content that you need to grind out a lot. And it becomes very expensive, and if you don't have thousands of gems, you're gonna get kind of screwed over. But, so avoid, like I said, avoid selective summon, avoid summoning the banner monster. It's very, very, very important because the banner monster is already a guaranteed summon. There's no reason to waste your selective summon on him. Or her, whatever it is. Professions. So a lot of early level players ignore this thing. Professions are a huge, huge, huge part of endgame. I'm actually only at 100,000 gold in my game right now because I've been working on professions. I just maxed out my processing. Professions are very expensive, and the longer you take to do them, the harder it's going to do to get them done quickly. So it's better to do them over time. So when you're level 1, just see what the resources are. You'll probably have them available in Rudolin and Teska and those early areas that you're in. So it's best to just work on them as you sort of progress through the game, especially if you're not trying to be a hardcore top-level player, if you're just trying to sort of progress through the game without having to do that long grind, because otherwise you're going to get really hard stuck on power progression once you hit higher levels, because you're going to have to sit here and grind these things out. That's kind of where I'm at right now in my game, is I'm grinding out alchemy and blacksmithing and things, but a lot of the resources take a very, very, very long time to grind. So just be on your guard with this, like be very wary, grab resources as you go. Just be always looking out for the best ways to get resources. Always be looking for these resources because they will change the entire way you play the game. They'll increase your power. Gems are necessary. Equipment upgrades are necessary because you're going to get legendary equipment from dungeons that you can only upgrade with blacksmithing, for example. Next up, we're going to move on to Awakening. Awakening is a very big part of this game. Once again, it's a very big part of powering up your monsters. So we're going to talk about Awakening. So Awakening 1 through 5 just cost Breaths of Life, which become very scarce later game unless you can exchange a lot of pieces with a lot of summons. So make sure you are only awakening monsters that you're really certain you want to use here, because Breaths of Life are the rarer than the essences. You can refund some monsters, but that resource to refund monsters is very scarce, so be careful how you use this. But this is essentially a way to power up your monsters outside of runes, outside of leveling them up. You can awaken monsters to a maximum of 20. It costs a lot. It costs roughly 120 shards. Shards are what you get when you get a duplicate pull of a monster. So it is very, very expensive to awaken a monster. So make sure when you pull dupes, avoid using them on skills if you can, unless it's like if it's an event monster like Bastet is right now in my current game, where I can kind of use her shards for skills because she's very easy for me to get right now. There's like 14 days left in the event, and I've already almost maxed out her skills, so I'm not worried about it. However, it costs a lot to awaken these monsters, so you can see here, we have my Howl just got fully awakened. So 1 through 5 just cost these essences and the Breaths of Life, but once you get to 10, you can see it costs 20 shards, which means you have to pull a duplicate of that monster or gain shards by grinding out the available or content like Arena or whatever that might have them available, or maybe trading at the shard exchange. So up to 7, 8, 9 doesn't cost any shards. 10, it costs 20 shards. You get to 11, it doesn't cost shards. 12 costs 20 shards. 13, no shards. 14, 20 shards again, and then 40 shards. So just getting from 11 to 15, it costs around 80 shards. So it can cost, I don't know the exact number yet because I haven't awakened, but I know it's somewhere between the range of 120 to 200 shards just to fully awaken one monster. So you got to remember that with 5 stars, it is very hard to do. And so generally 3 stars are going to be stronger early game for you, and 5 stars are going to be stronger late game as you start to collect duplicates and things in the late game when you're using legendary scrolls and things. So that's a big thing to remember. Be very careful how you use your shards. Do not waste them. Next, we're going to move on to runes. Runes are arguably the biggest way you are going to gain power on your monsters, and probably the most important thing in this entire game for powering up aside from gear. So, runes, what are the stats? How do they work? So, you're going to have 6 slots for runes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of the odd number slots are going to have, every rune has a primary stat and then 4 substats that it can gain. So let's start there. So, we're going to start with primary stats. Slot 1, 3, and 5 are going to have basic ones like HP plus 1,000, attack plus 500, whatever, right? However, slots 2 through 2, 4, and 6, the even slots, can have percentages. Percentages and attack speed, for example, here, are much stronger than things like just base HP bonuses. You're going to want to avoid runes that have base HP bonuses rather than percents, because you are wasting stats if you are running these. And I want everyone to remember that because that's very, very, very important. You are losing power, you are losing stats, you are wasting it. Do not run any runes that just have a flat number in slots 2, 4, 6. They are trash runes. Do not use them. Now, what does each stat on a rune mean? So, HP is the health on your monster, and I hope everyone knows what health is. Attack is pretty obvious. It boosts the damage your monster does. Defense reduces the damage. However, you're going to want to focus on HP more than you're going to want to focus on defense. Defense is a diminishing returns stat. The more you put into defense, the less damage it reduces. So generally speaking, focus more on HP and then have defense be more of a substat that you focus on. You still want defense, but you want HP more than you want defense. If you can get primary stat HP percent, it's going to be better than defense percent in most cases because someone cannot break your HP. However, they can break your defense. And also, like I said, defense has diminishing returns. Attack speed is just your base monster's basic attacks, how quickly they hit. So depending on the monster, you're going to want to avoid or use this. A lot of monsters that do critical attacks, if you want to run high crit and attack speed, that's a great combo. Critical rate, crit rate is how often you critical. Crit damage is how much damage multiplier you have. So if you have a 43% crit damage multiplier, you'll have 143% damage whenever you hit a crit. That's something important to remember. Also, these blue numbers that add, before I go any further, these blue numbers that add on the side are just telling you how much bonuses you're getting. The stat is telling you the total. So just be aware of that. So my Bastet does not have 45,000 HP plus 28,000. She has 45,000, and the bonus that she's getting is 28,000 that adds up to 45,000. Accuracy is how often your unit will apply status effects. Resistance is how hard it is to apply a status effect to your monster. Precision is, actually, I'm not sure on this stat, honestly. Evasion is how often your monster will evade attacks. Yasis added in here, precision is actually how likely you are to basically avoid someone's evasion. So the higher precision you have, the more likely it is your monster will just will hit their attacks in general, and then that helps counter evasion. So if you have 150% evasion precision, then a monster with 40% evasion will always get hit by you. Essentially, you want to outdo their evasion. So that's that I would less worry about. Evasion, typically you want to run on supports and stuff. So what stats do you want on each monster? What kind of runes do you want on each monster? So let's first start off with supports. Generally, on your supports, unless the support heals based off of its HP, you will want to run evasion on supports. You want to avoid them getting hit as much as possible. However, a lot of supports have HP-based abilities. So, for example, like Tion and Kona, you're going to want to have mostly HP on them. Or not Tion, sorry, because Tion doesn't scale by health. But Kona, you're going to want HP on mostly. Because you want them to survive and you want them to avoid being hit. On your DPS, depending on the DPS. So these are going to be rangers, mages, things like that. You're going to primarily want attack speed, critical rate, and critical damage, depending on the monster. So for Theomars, for example, he doesn't get any bonuses from hitting criticals. So generally speaking, you're going to want attack speed and critical damage, which is going to be swift runes, and energy runes are going to give extra health. So energy runes, 2 of them, gives extra health. 4 swift runes gives extra speed, attack speed. That gives good DPS. And then for your assassin classes, like Naomi the Martial Cat, which is very good for a lot of content, by the way, just throwing that in there, you're going to want a lot of critical rates because she gets bonuses from hitting criticals. So assassin types are going to most often want critical rate and critical damage on. I don't have the best rune set, so I don't have her set up for that right now. But those are generally the things you want to run. The warrior monsters you're going to want to have be generally beefier, but also damage. So kind of a combination between energy and blade or energy and rage, depending on what the monster's stats are. Like if it has crit bonuses, you're going to want to run crit attack on it and stuff. But if it has maybe just a general attack bonuses or casting bonuses or accuracy, like maybe if it applies stats effects, you're going to want to run stats effects. So what does each rune type do? Energy, having 2 energy runes equipped gives your monster 15% max HP extra. 2 guard runes gives your monster 15% extra defense. Blade gives a crit rate of plus 12% on. So remember, this is on top of all the other stats you're getting. You just want to run them in sets. Rage is a set of 4 for crit damage plus 40%. Fatal is a set of 4 with a 35% attack buff. Most of the time, you're not going to want to use Fatal. It's going to be better to use Swift or Blade. Swift and Blade in a combination on a damage-based monster, bet more than Fatal in most cases. Focus is going to be your accuracy plus 15%, so this is very good on monsters that are focused on applying status effects. Endure is your resistance, so how often you avoid status effects, and then evasion and precision, which we've already talked about in depth. Just remember that when you get to higher level, make sure to power up your runes, because that's one of the biggest ways to get power. You're going to want to get your runes to mostly plus 12. Avoid plus 15ing non-purple runes because it is very expensive. It consumes a lot of resources. So purple and legendary are purple and gold / legendary are okay to typically plus 15, but blue ones, if you can avoid it, or typically you're going to want to avoid plus 15ing them because that's kind of a waste of resources. So let's talk about some pieces of content that you're going to want very specific monsters for. First off, the Path of Adventure. This is where you get runes. So for the Queen Spider's Nest, she applies a damage over time effect of poison that she also scales her damage based off of. So there are a few options for this. I run Naomi / the Wind Martial Cat to go for speed, but level 15 is too hard for me right now because that's a very high power area. But you can run the Wind Martial Cat for speed, or you can run Kona for heals or Tion for heals and try to sort of attrition boss battle out. If you want to try and attrition the boss battle out rather than speeding it because you don't have maybe the damage output to speed through the boss fight, then you're going to want a cleanser, which is someone who removes debuffs from your monsters. But generally, really good beginner loadout for this, like setup with monsters, is to run Naomi the Wind Martial Cat, Shannon the Wind Pixie, and throw in as your third monster any healer or support such as Kona, Tion, and if you have a cleanser that removes debuffs, not Chloe because she's a fire type and that'll make the fight a lot harder typically, then go ahead and throw that monster in. Otherwise, Kona or Tion are a really good pick for this, which are Light and Water Garuda. Forgotten Earth Shrine. This fight doesn't really have a gimmick aside from he just hits really hard. So avoid his attacks, use attack debuffs on him. Just generally avoid getting hit. Obviously, have some really good healers, have some defense buffs, and this you can kind of auto pretty easily without worrying about anything. Tierglan's Cave. This one also doesn't have much of a gimmick. He just hits really, really hard, similar to Forgotten Earth Shrine. Make sure that you have some buffs up and stuff. Just run standard loadout, Kona, Shannon, and whatever other unit you have that's either support or DPS or whatever you want to slot into there that does best for you. You can try loadouts obviously in and out and just sort of try out different sets to see how they work. Laboratory of Madness. This is Shortly. This is one of the bosses you fight in the campaign. You will unlock this dungeon after you defeat him. So his gimmick is, like I said, the Static Shock. So Kona is very good for this dungeon. Any cleanser that removes debuffs, because that will do damage to you over time. Anything that can block healing if you don't have the damage output to deal with him. Things like that. Generally, I would recommend running Kona, Shannon, and then a good DPS output unit, or in place of Kona, maybe another cleanser. Borbo. So this is something important. Lava Cave. The gimmick of this area is that the main boss, Borbo, takes less damage from your skill attacks, and he takes more damage from your auto attacks. This is very, very, very important because you will want to avoid using skills, obviously. You're going to want to run a monster that's focused on auto attacking rather than a monster that uses skills because that will be less effective. So once again, Kona is very good for this. Shannon's a little bit riskier. If you can replace her with another support that's non-wind type, because this boss hits very, very hard, that would be a better decision typically. So replace her with a water or fire, white or dark type, and then slot in a DPS or support depending on what your needs are. If you are able to beat this boss quicker with another DPS, go for it. If you need the support and that's the only way you can beat this boss, use that generally. Next up, Path of Training and Subjugation. You should generally be able to clear as long as you just have Shanna, Conan, something like that. This content is very easy. It's very autoable without having a specific loadout, really. Just generally easy content to grind. I wouldn't worry about it. Next up is Cairos. So, Hall of Magic is just the boss hits pretty hard. You mainly need to worry about after he does his shock attack where he shoots sparks out of his body and weakens you. He will do a attack where he shoots down a bunch of sort of laser things. So you either want to get rid of the debuff or you just want to be there to avoid getting hit by it or have a unit that can shield. Hall of Fire. This boss generally isn't anything to worry about. He applies bombs, which can do really big damage and stun you temporarily. As long as you have a pretty solid healer, you should be okay on this boss. But if you have a cleanser that is pretty strong, you can go ahead and run that. It will help out with this boss fight a lot. Hall of Water has a sort of strange gimmick. This one's a very good one to run Chloe on because she makes you invincible. The boss does damage to you whenever you attack it. So having invincibility is very good. Having Chloe's low health invincibility is very good. Tion is very good because you have the revive ability. Any unit that can revive is really good on this fight. So generally just be aware that this boss hurts you when you hurt it. And just run units that are sort of aware of that. Like I said, Chloe / Fire Picyon Priest, Tion / like Gruda or any other monster that can revive are both very good options. And then a unit that uses more skill attacks rather than auto attacks, because it will take less damage from using skill attacks than auto attacks, and it will stay alive much longer. So Naomi is a great pick for this dungeon because her skills hit really hard and do continuous damage. Hall of Wind, this boss gets his ultimate really often, and his ultimate is he shoots a little laser, but that's not the problem with this boss. He doesn't do much damage with his laser. The problem is whenever he does his laser, he applies invincibility to himself. So if there's a specific monster you're probably going to want to get early on, you're going to get a 4-star selection ticket to select a certain 4-star monster. I don't know if he's selectable, but I believe he should be. Point is, if you get the Wind Inugami, this monster is very helpful. He has a ability, Fog Slash, that removes a beneficial effect from a boss. So you're going to want to run accuracy on him to get him to remove the invincibility from the Wind, Hall of Wind boss. That'll make the boss very easy. As long as he has enough health to survive his attacks, you should be able to complete this content fine. Hall of Light, this boss just destroys your health, so the main goal with this boss is just hit really hard and fast and have a decent healer. Hall of Dark's gimmick is that he makes you bleed and then does more damage to you if you are bleeding, so generally you're going to want a cleanser for this boss, something that gets rid of downside effects. I haven't really run this dungeon much, but just from his effects, he applies bleed, you can cleanse that, and otherwise he'll scale his damage and kill you really easily. So be aware of that. Trial of Ascension, this content is generally pretty easy if you just run your standard strong team. Be aware, a lot of people don't know this, there are these treasure rooms on the side. Make sure that you aren't wasting these, so don't do them earlier than you reasonably can because you'll waste a lot of resources on these. These are a really good safe source of gold later on in the game when it's a struggle to get it, and they will give you a lot of good items for leveling up monsters and things. So make sure you're running these as you go up the tower, and also make sure you're checking down here. You'll have these special rooms that can give you a lot of very good rewards, shards for mystical scrolls, legendary scrolls, all kinds of things. Make sure that you are completing these, they're very important. Tower of Ascension is very important to do your best to clear every month because you'll get, on hard mode, you'll get a legendary scroll from it. On normal mode, you'll receive a Devilmon for it. Devilmon gives a skill up to any monster. This is very good for max skilling out 5-star monsters. It's very important. Spires of Ascension, a lot of people don't know this. However, this is very similar to Trial of Ascension. However, each floor has a set of challenges, a set of 3 challenges that you're going to want to run through, and they'll give you rewards for these tokens so you can power up your Powers of Ascension, which are permanent effects within the Tower of Ascension. How do you know when your Power of Ascensions are active? How do they work? Well, each floor has this little symbol by it. That's the Power of Ascension that will be active on that floor. Now, there's going to be the Fire, Water, Wind, Light, and Dark. These are going to be very difficult early game. Don't worry about doing them earlier on. These are permanent. All of these are not like Tower of Ascension. They do not reset, or Trial of Ascension, sorry. These do not reset every season. You can run these and take as long as possible, as long as you want on them. These just require you to have one team full of that one element of monster. So just be aware of that. It's just going to require you to run all fire, all water, all wind, all light, all dark. They're very hard pieces of content. Like I said, don't stress about running them. Party dungeons, raids. So you have Reed Hill, Butterfly Tomb. These are both very early game. Run these as much as you can. They'll give you some decent rewards early on. You'll get some Breath of Life and things. Very good dungeons to complete. Foggy Prison is a later game dungeon. It's very important to run this for raid coins. You're going to get Foggy Rain coins. These give you very, very good gear. Wouldn't worry too much about this because this is late game, both of these. But make sure you're running these. Once you have the availability, make sure you're running these every day if you can. Rupture. Make sure, I slacked on this a bit. I regret it now. But this is one of the best ways to get Skystone, which is something you use to upgrade almost everything in the game, along with energies, which you use to transcend your summoner. This is very important for leveling up your summoner to max level and improving your power level. So make sure you are running this content every single day with the group if you can. This one gives you gold and more energies, so just like I said, also crafting materials. So make sure you're running this content every single day. That's a big mistake I made. You'll fall behind if you do not. Arena. Do not stress too much about running Arena when you first start out in the game. Just run it when you can. Use your tickets every day if you can. Make sure to be refreshing the Arena every 20 or so minutes. Get your new matches. Challenge whoever you can reasonably. If someone's lower than power than you, probably just run the fight and just run as much as you can, because the Arena shop sells Devilmons and Legendary Scrolls, both of which are amazing rewards to get you further in the game when you're early on. And they are provided, one is provided per month, which is Legendary Scroll. The Devilmon is there every week. So make sure you're completing those every single week. Make sure you're grinding out the shop. Don't miss out on any of those rewards because they can help you a lot. There are two types of arenas, the Brawl Arena and the Challenge Arena. At this time, the Brawl Arena has not released. However, the Challenge Arena is an auto-fighting arena, and the Brawl Arena is essentially a real-time arena where you're fighting against other summoners. So, let's talk about gear last. We have the Summoner gear. This is gear that you generally get from the dungeons, the raids, and the subjugation content. This gear, make sure you're using gems if you have, or effect stones, gems, whatever you can to power up this gear. Avoid powering up anything that is not 5-star at least, to anything above +6 even. Make sure you're getting decent stats on these, whether that be defense, attack, whatever. Just make sure you're not wasting your runes, your resources with Skystone and stuff on these, because they become very, very short in supply at the end game. This is something a lot of people don't understand. Make sure you're running them. Something else to remember that a lot of people don't know is you have 6 staff slots when you finish. You have 5 staff slots when you finish the game. These stats provide 25% of their power to you even when they're not in use. So the water staff has maybe, let's say my desert heat staff provides me 1,000 power. It will provide 250 power to me even when it is not equipped. So these are very important to keep powered up. Have them all, at a decent power level. Once you hit the end game, make sure, like I said, 5-star only to +9 or above, because otherwise you're wasting a lot of resources on staffs that are not worth it. So make sure you're grinding out subjugation for coins to exchange for good gear. Make sure you're grinding out raids to exchange for this gear. Make sure you're collecting resources, all those things. Whew, that was a lot of talking. I think the last piece of content we have to talk about here is the guild. Make sure you are in a guild. This is one of the biggest parts of the game. Guilds will give you tons of rewards. There is a guild shop. This guild shop will have sky stones and light and darkness souls in there. So you can get 20,000 sky stones per week from this shop. That's a big deal. Make sure you're getting that. You can also get a light and darkness scroll every month. That's also a big deal. Make sure you are getting that. If you have the extra money, go ahead and buy these extra scrolls. If there's good pieces in here that you really want, go ahead and grab those too. But these are limited in supply because you only get about 660 guild coins per day if you're doing high tier missions. So just make sure you're using them on things that you really want or really need. Generally though, very important content to remember. Make sure you're in a guild. Make sure you're completing your daily contributions every day. At least the missions, if nothing else. Make sure you're looking at all these shops. When you complete the Ascension, you get these coins. These outfits give you buffs. Make sure you're completing these buying these outfits when you can. Things like that. Subjugation tokens, like I said, raid coins. All right. I believe that is everything. Exchange pieces. The game will explain how this system works. I don't need to explain that to you guys. Whew. So that is all of the content in Summoner's War for a beginner at this time. They may expand more, but like I said, make sure you're watching. I think the last note I'll put in here is make sure to watch your dress room. Craft these when you can. I wouldn't put too much time into it because the buffs are rather small, but once you've finished other things, if you have the extra resources and you can craft it, go ahead and do it because it's worth crafting. It's worth doing because they give you these buffs. I think, yeah, that is everything. That is everything I have here in my script. So make sure you're collecting these book rewards too. That is everything I sort of have in my script for now. So that was a lot. Go back, check the video if you want. I'm going to make sure this is all timestamped. This is all separated into different sections so you guys can go sort of click through it. This is just my best guide that I can give at the moment to a beginner for Summoner's War Chronicles. I really wish you guys the best of luck in this game. Make sure you use your resources well. This is an MMO, remember, it's a long-term game. So use your resources well, even if you're a casual, because you don't want to end up in a spot where you're in the end game with 5,000 gold and now you have to run 6 hours of repeat quests and you don't have the time to do it, or you don't want to AFK your phone on for hours or your computer on for hours. So, like I said, use your resources wisely, save most of your resources until the end game. If you cannot make it through a piece of content, in Act 4 or 5, make sure to go get those monsters from the area explorations, and then go back and run the content more, maybe power up some runes if you really need to, if you're that much lower. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a fan-freaking-tastic night. I stream every day Summoners War Chronicles from about 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so make sure to come hang out and hit that like, hit that subscribe if this video was helpful. This is your boy Yays. Peace and out.